Freddie Freeman is back, but he might not be 100% for a little while. Will that affect the Dodgers roster plans? Let's dig into it live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Thursday evening for our last show of the week. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now to make it even easier to find. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And speaking of getting started, we're getting started, and Freddie Freeman got his Cactus League play started on Thursday, Vince, and kind of started where he left off. He ripped a line drive base hit to right field in his first at bat. 2 flyouts after the fact. They said the plan was for 2 at bats, but he talked his way into a 3rd at bat. And you know, maybe the most interesting thing to me was in his post-game interview, he said he was swinging more than he normally would because he wanted to figure out where his timing is and if that is down, which if ever there was a quote that underscored what we always say about how results are very much secondary in spring training, it's that.
Yeah, for Freddie, I mean, with him, his swing, it's always so delicate. I remember, last year when he got hurt and he wasn't swinging at all, and even when Max got sick and he wasn't swinging at all, and then comes back and is hitting, and World Series was hitting, and then now he's swinging a little bit more. I'm sure the fact that he wasn't running, that probably doesn't help the fact that he can do not much else other than swing. I know he said he needed about 30 at bats to feel comfortable getting into the season, so he's got 3 down already. I'm sure he'll get more down recently, but yeah, the spring results, as we'll get to, don't really matter, but there was a little bit of concern, at least for me, with what was said about Freddie and how he's going to play the first half of the season, he made it seem like.
Yeah, you mentioned the not running. That is, of course, it was 12 weeks ago today that he had surgery on his ankle, and he did say that he played with his ankle taped up and that he will do that at least till the All-Star break, which kind of indicates that he's not 100%. And we mentioned before, Freddie Freeman's value, even though he did lead the Dodgers in stolen bases a couple years ago, his value is not in his running. But we've seen that ankle issues can sap power. It could affect his defense. A lot of those things. Hopefully, it's not going to be to that point. But the fact that he's not going to be 100% for the first half of the season, it got me wondering if the Dodgers might affect their roster plans. Just used to be, you could just, we have Freddie Freeman. We don't need to think about first base. He will be there 162 times this year for us, but that may not be the case this year.
Yeah, to me, it's concerning. I go back and forth. If it's the ankle and it's, kind of like an ankle sprain, if you sprain it again, then, maybe they put him on that. Maybe they're just trying to get by with what it is. But if you're starting the season where you already have to have your ankle taped and it's not precautionary, it's something that you need to have because, your ankle doesn't feel steady or whatever the reason is, then that's definitely concerning in that aspect, just because I'd rather him take a month or 2 off. Now, they could see it the other way. Hey, you know what, play. And if it gets worse or if you're not feeling great, then we'll decide to, pull the plug on this and give you some time off. Ultimately, we need him to be fine in September and October the most. So, yeah, I don't know. It just feels weird to me like, hey, we're just going to throw you in when you're not 100%.
Yeah, and I guess I'll play, not devil's advocate, because this is trying to look on the bright side. So angel's advocate, maybe. as someone with plenty of history of ankle problems, back when I was playing, city league softball, old man softball, I would just throw on ankle braces on both ankles to go play. Not because I had ankle problems, but because I knew that I had a history of ankle problems and I felt more comfortable with the braces on. And Freddie did say it's a lighter taping job than what he had in October. So it seems like it's just maybe for that little extra bit of stability, so he doesn't have to think about it. Maybe it's, if I don't have the tape on, I'm going to be worried about rolling my ankle. Having that tape, it's that stability that maybe the ligament isn't, my brain isn't sure the ligament is going to give. So we'll add the tape so that I can just play free and easy.
Yeah, that's possible. And like I said, I had taped ankles in high school playing football, and I didn't have ankle issues. It was more precautionary than anything. To me, it just feels like, okay, what is it for? And we don't know, and we might never know. And, that's kind of where we get stuck in this between part of, if is it just to help him mentally? Is it to actually help him physically? I mean, taped ankles aren't a big deal in general. Like guys, a lot of football players, maybe some baseball players get their ankles taped anyways. But if it is, he's getting it taped for more than just, okay, I don't want to roll it again. Because he said he never rolled an ankle before this. So, it's one of those where, okay, now is he worried about rolling it again, or does it actually bother him? I guess we'll never know. And with Freddie Freeman, realistically, he doesn't need the ankle. Like running isn't a strong part of his game, and movement isn't the hugest part of his game. So he can get by. And, I trust the Dodgers to not put guys in these situations, even though I guess they have put Gonsolin and Bobby Miller in similar situations over the past few years. But that was out of necessity. This isn't out of necessity yet. So I would imagine that, he's all right, I guess.
Yeah, and throw in the fact that Freddie's 35 and a half years old and the ankle thing, it seems to me like it's a pretty safe bet that Freddie will not play 162 games this year. Maybe not even play the 147 that he played last year. But, I would guess somewhere in that ballpark, 145-ish games probably for Freddie. Is that enough? If you're thinking 17 games he doesn't play, is that enough to take that into account when you're making the roster? Does it give a nudge in favor of David Bodie, who we talked about yesterday, because he can play first base? Do you just trust Kike Hernandez, who's played, he's basically been Freddie's backup, along with backing up every other position on the field, basically? Or does it make you think about Dalton Rushing? If Dalton Rushing could start 2 games at catcher every week and a game at first base, well, then maybe it's worth having him on the roster. A lot of these different things. Do you think the Dodgers will factor this in their roster decisions?
I think you have to. And I think the first step in that factor is, what do we want Max Muncy to do? Do you want him to just stay at third base and not have to worry about playing 2 different positions or not? Because if you don't care if Max Muncy just switches across the diamond, then it doesn't necessarily affect your roster too much. If you want Max Muncy to stay at third base and not want to move him around, then yeah, it does affect it too much, because they don't have a set guy that can play backup, first base at the moment. Kike has done it, and he's a little short, but he's done it. Will Smith, had that one issue that one time, but that was a one-time thing. He kind of got thrust into it. I'm sure he could do it fine. Michael Conforto's never played it. A lot of outfielders have been able to play it before. Dalton Rushing's a guy that can play it. He's played it a handful of times in his career.
He played a little bit in the minors, had a lot in college, actually, because he was backing up Henry Davis.
Yeah, so ultimately, like I said, if you're going to keep Max Muncy at third, we don't want to move Muncy, then yes, I think it affects it. And yes, it does open the door for Rushing a little bit.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see for sure that, it's a new thing. It's crazy how quickly we became accustomed to everyday Freddie, even though this is only his 4th season with the Dodgers coming up. But we've just kind of gotten used to, okay, we don't need to worry about first base because Freddie's going to be there every day. Now it seems like maybe Freddie won't be there every day, or he'll be maybe DHing some days if Shohei's taking some days off. So might need some first base action, and we'll see if that gives a little bump to any of these guys who are fringe roster considerations. So,
if you're a guy on the spring roster right now, step up.
Yep.
Step up.
Put on your first base glove. Start taking some grounders. So,
yeah.
You mentioned Michael Conforto. Michael Conforto got his first hit of the spring finally on Thursday. He's been working through some swing changes. We're going to dig into Conforto's play so far and what we're expecting from him this year. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting features a lot of fun. It keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you'll never feel like you missed your chance. And the app is easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Just looking at some of the upcoming NBA odds, the Lakers against the Timberwolves might be a fun one right now. If you're watching the game while you're watching this live betting, we're talking about Lakers are up by 6 with 7 minutes left. They are currently minus 1,200 to win this game. If you think the Timberwolves have a comeback in them, I don't know, maybe you're a Dodger fan who doesn't like the Lakers, plus 630 for the T-Wolves to come back and win this game, chance to win somebody. It just changed to plus 560. Look at that. The odds are changing live as we're talking about this. A lot of different things coming up on tomorrow. The Thunder minus 750 favorites over the Hawks. So a lot of options there. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and then abracadabra, you are an everydayer. Also, you can go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Text directly with us, one-on-one conversations, get news before the podcast, and get access to our Discord server to talk to other Locked On Dodgers listeners. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. And for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. So Michael Conforto, Dodgers signed him this offseason to a one-year deal, $17 million, to be their everyday left fielder. And so far this spring, it hasn't looked great. He did finally get his first hit on Thursday. He ripped a double off the wall in right center field. That swing is kind of what I think of when I think of Michael Conforto over the years, the 9 years that he's been playing against the Dodgers, hitting hardline drives all over the field. Definitely was good to see. But he's also, we talked yesterday about David Bodie's swing changes. Conforto has been going through some swing changes too, and just kind of trying to lock in on what he's doing. After he hit that double, what Tim Neverett said was, hopefully he just locked in right there.
Yeah, and that's what you're hoping for with Conforto. If he is working on swing change, we didn't get exact details of what it was, so can't really analyze it too much. But this is one of the more interesting parts of the Dodgers right now, because when they signed Conforto, we weren't entirely sure what that meant, and there was still a lot of moving pieces to be done at that point. And we thought, okay, maybe it's more of a platoon role. And then they, kind of said he's going to be the everyday left fielder. And we just kind of left it at that. And I don't think we've really talked about Conforto much since then. And, this is one where, similar to a guy that's very young, you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of Conforto. Last year, he was above average offensively. The previous 2 years before that, with one off year sandwiched in between due to injury, he was at league average. And with the Dodgers, we've talked a lot about, okay, you can be fine with one guy that's above or league average or below league average in your offense, but now we're talking about that with a couple different guys now. And Conforto is one of those where I don't know what to expect, and I think the Dodgers obviously are smarter, and they do know what they think and what to expect, and I'm gonna put the trust in that. But it's one of those question marks that could become, it could be 2 months into the season and asking, okay, what's gonna happen in left field now?
And it also underscores a little bit the situation the Dodgers are in, where they can sign a guy like Michael Conforto and say, you're going to bat somewhere between 6th and 9th for us. And so don't worry about you being the man. Just do your thing, hit some line drives for us, and you'll be just fine. And so maybe that is something that will help him to adjust and help him. Last year, who knows what he might have done if he wasn't playing at half his games at whatever they call that stadium in San Francisco these days. It's it's not a great place to be a hitter. And he still, like you said, he was 116 OPS plus last year, had a solid season. I don't know exactly what they're working on with his swing. And you could definitely picture a guy maybe tweaking his swing because he was playing in San Francisco and needing to untweak it, when you're going back to playing in a more neutral atmosphere. So the thing that he hasn't struck out a ton this spring, which is nice. Hasn't really hit the ball hard a lot until this double. But you can kind of see even over the last few days, you've been able to kind of see, it looks like maybe he's starting to get things figured out. In the end, we had a question the other day in a text message from a listener named Randy Thomas. And he was talking about, he said, maybe in the next show or two, could you guys talk about what the Dodgers' actual spring training goals are? Because it's clearly not winning. And, the goal isn't to win games. It's to
not get hurt.
Yeah, don't get hurt. And for every player, it's different. And so for Conforto, it seems like, he probably has that March 11th, the last game before they head for Japan, circled on his calendar. That's when I need to be ready, And so building up to that. And it's why it's different to be in spring training as a veteran as compared to a rookie or even a non-roster invite guy, like David Bodie. Michael Conforto knows that he's going to be on the roster. He knows that he's penciled in to be the starting left fielder. If he's healthy, he's going to start the season as a starting left fielder. Now, if it's mid-May and he's really, really struggling, maybe they start adjusting that. But he kind of has that job security. And so he can not worry about, I'm trying to earn a job. It's, I'm trying to get ready for the regular season, and I know when that starts. And so I can check the boxes along the way. And getting that first hit is definitely an important box to check. But, that was my thought when Randy sent that text was, it's different for every player because every player is coming at the roster from a different spot. And Michael Conforto is coming at the roster from a guaranteed spot.
Yeah, like Freddie Freeman, says he needs 30 at-bats to feel comfortable. Some players may need more. Some players may feel like they need less. If you're in the middle of changing some swings or some adjustments to your swings, it could take more because you want to find that, everyone says when you feel it, some type of that when it comes to pitching mechanics, when it comes to hitting mechanics. And, maybe he's still trying to find that and maybe he's working through that. Or there's other guys that come in and, I'm looking to pull the ball more. I'm looking to pull the ball less. I'm looking to hit it in the air more. I'm looking to hit it, up the middle more, whatever. There's a lot of different things behind the scenes that we're not privy to. We don't need to be privy to. And that's why ultimately, if nobody gets hurt this spring, I don't care if the Dodgers go 0-17 or whatever, however many games they have, it doesn't matter. I think, our buddy Blake Williams over from Dodger Blue had put out a tweet that the Angels had won the most games in the Cactus League, I think, a couple of years in the past, and were 500 last year and have been significantly under 500 the last 3 seasons. So, yeah, the spring doesn't matter in that sense. That matters in getting guys built up for the season, getting guys ready for the season, and not getting hurt.
Yeah. And so for Conforto, he's a guy I'm watching pretty closely over the next few days to see if that double was the start of something or if he continues to struggle. But again, we won't really have any idea what to expect from him until at least April, when the games start counting, give him 10 or 12 of those games that matter and see where he's at. And then you can start to think about that. But like I said, Dodgers aren't going to pull the plug on him for, at least a month and a half into the season, that's the luxury of him being the number 7 guy in the lineup or whatever. You know what? Okay, take your time, figure it out. Obviously, the sooner the better, but we're not going to worry too much about it. Yeah. Speaking of spring training and what to worry about and not worry about, the Dodgers have allowed 26 stolen bases in 8 spring training games. We're going to dig into that a little bit based on a conversation I had earlier today, and I'll lay out some numbers for you. So thank you for making us your first listen, and please keep it locked on Dodgers. Hey, we are back. Thanks again for making us your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks for being a Locked On Dodgers insider if you are. If you're not, just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you are watching this on YouTube, throw some comments in the comment section below. Comments definitely help other people engage with the episode, helps other people find the episode, all that good stuff. So appreciate that. And let's jump into our last topic, Vince. The Dodgers, as I mentioned, going to break, the Dodgers have allowed 26 stolen bases this spring. Maybe a little bit of a PTSD from 2 years ago in 2023 when the league just ran wild on the Dodgers. And I think it was more frustrating because it was the Padres who maybe took the most advantage of it. So that was rough. Last year was a lot better for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons was that Noah Syndergaard was no longer on the team. There's definitely a pitcher element to this. There's also a catcher element to this. And I just got a text from Randy Thomas thanking us for his 5 seconds of fame. Hey, now you got 10 seconds because you just said your name again, Randy. So I was having a conversation in a Discord group that I'm in earlier today about the stolen bases. And basically my point was I'm not worried about it at all because the very few of the stolen bases have come against guys who will pitch for the Dodgers this year. And 0 of the stolen bases have come against the guy who will do the bulk of the catching for the Dodgers this year. And so I made a spreadsheet because that's what I like to do. Spreadsheets are my love language. Spreadsheets are my comfort food to go along with all the other foods. And so I've got some interesting numbers. You want some interesting numbers, Vince?
I'm in for interesting numbers.
All right. So as of right now, the only pitcher who is a lock to be on the Dodgers opening day roster who has allowed more than 1 stolen base this spring is Tanner Scott, who allowed a double steal today. Those 2 stolen bases. That's the only one. Other guys who have allowed multiple stolen bases this spring, Robinson Ortiz, who is a decent prospect, maybe a Dodger someday, not in 2025. Livan Reynoso, who nobody had ever heard of until he came in to pitch the other day. And even after watching him pitch, I had to look and make sure I remembered his name. He's allowed 2 stolen bases. Joe Jakes, who will not pitch for the Dodgers in 2025, probably ever. Jack Little, not anywhere close to the big leagues. And Edgardo Henriquez. Edgardo Henriquez is the only other guy with a chance to be on the 2025 roster who's allowed multiple stolen bases. He's allowed 2. Oh, and the one name I left out, Julian Fernandez, has allowed 6 of the 26 stolen bases. So you take out those 6, 20, it's still too many, but Julian Fernandez is not a 2025 Dodger. Other guys, the only other guys who have a chance to be on the roster this year who've allowed even a single stolen base, Anthony Bonda has allowed 1, Bobby Miller has allowed 1, Dustin May has allowed 1, and Landon Knack has allowed 1. So realistically, you've got those 4 plus Tanner Scott's 2, plus Edgardo Henriquez's 2, 8 stolen bases total allowed by guys who have any chance of pitching for the Dodgers this year. Makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and then with Will Smith behind the plate, who was one of the best at throwing out runners last year. So, yeah, again, you don't want to say the spring doesn't matter at all, but the spring is there for certain reasons. And even if the guys that have allowed stolen bases, like if they are working on some and, I'm worried about my pitch location. I'm worried about whatever. I'm worried about this. Not that I'm not worried about the runner, but I know how to control the run game, or I have a sense of what I'm going to do. Right now, I'm not necessarily worried about that. That could be, the case. Like I said, Will Smith could be a part of it. I haven't seen or don't remember too many of the throws, but I would imagine, there was a chance. But yeah, again, this is what's going to happen. We've seen complaints about sloppy play. We've seen complaints about, everything else. I know there was complaints today about the Dodgers not hitting. And ultimately, if anyone can tell me the Dodgers Cactus League record the last few years, how many stolen bases they've allowed the last few years, how many times they've been, less than 5 hits, less than 2 runs. If you can remember all that and correlate it to the Dodgers, one, you won't be able to correlate it because it won't matter because the Dodgers have been good the last 12 years and they probably haven't been necessarily good in the spring the last 12 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned catchers. I've got stats on those too. Of the 26 stolen bases, 13 of those have come with Chris Oakey catching. Now, the only way Chris Oakey is going to catch for the 2025 Dodgers is if there's like a Buddy Holly, Richie Valens type situation involving Will Smith and Austin Barnes and Dalton Rushing and Hunter Fiducia, taking a private plane somewhere. And, Chris Oakey will not play for the Dodgers. Like you said, it's hard to know what's the pitcher's fault, what's the catcher's fault. But I promise you, every stolen base that was the combination of Julian Fernandez and Chris Oakey has no bearing on how Tyler Glasnow pitching to Will Smith will be in controlling the running game. 13 stolen bases allowed by Chris Oakey, 6 by Fiducia, 4 by Barnes, 3 by Rushing. That's the breakdown of the 26 stolen bases. And like you said, controlling the running game has got to be so far in the back of people's minds on February 27th, where it's like,
unless it was an issue for you, like if Noah Syndergaard was in a camp this spring, that might be something he's worried about. But I don't remember it being an issue for any of the other guys we mentioned.
Yeah. Mark says, don't forget it's also spring training for fans who live to complain about things. They're getting their practice in. That's definitely true. It's it's annoying to watch for sure. If you're watching these games, it's been kind of an annoying spring to watch because we are hardwired to want the boys playing in Dodger blue to win the baseball game.
There has been a lot of double digits on the other side. So yeah, I can understand it, but yeah.
And like I said, I do think there's a little bit, if the Dodgers hadn't been so bad at controlling the running game in 2023, I don't think it would be as big a concern. It'd be more of an element, that's weird. Dodgers were allowed 26 stolen bases. But you know what? Base runners, I would imagine base running is probably the quickest thing that is at midseason form in spring training, compared to hitting and pitching. Yeah, if you're fast, if you're a good base stealer, you're going to be a good base stealer the first day of spring training. And so the Mariners stealing 9 bases against the Dodgers. The Royals stole 9. The Mariners only stole 6, I think. But, those two teams, that's 15 of the 26 stolen bases in those 2 games. And it might just be, the Royals and the Mariners have some fast guys who were, they are ready to steal bases. And Chris Oakey's catching and Julian Fernandez is pitching. I'm going to go ahead and steal some bases here.
Yeah, it's like a rec league or something like that where once you're on first, if you're fast, you're on third. Like, obviously, these guys maybe aren't on third, but if you're on first base, you're on third base. If you're in some kind of league where, if you're fast, you're probably better than, more than 80% of the people out there. So.
Yeah. And 6 of the 26 stolen bases have been stealing third base, which that's a much higher percentage than you'll get in the regular season too. It's just something that, and maybe it wasn't even worth bringing up on this podcast, but I do enjoy numbers. I think data is interesting, and in the context of it's spring training, let's not stress about it. I thought that's why I took the time to put these all into a spreadsheet so I could see, who's allowing these stolen bases. And
we can relieve your stress as a Dodger fan just a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to try to do it.
Yeah. Giovanni Gallegos, Joe Jakes, Livan Reynoso, Jose Rodriguez, Jack Little, Robinson Ortiz, Julian Fernandez, Carson Hobbs, Jared Karros. Those are guys who've allowed the 19 stolen bases by guys who aren't going to pitch for the Dodgers this year. So, one less thing to worry about, I guess. I do hope the Dodgers will start winning some games soon. Even though it's just spring training, it is more fun when the Dodgers win. But I definitely am not going to stress until the games actually count.
Yeah, which we're getting closer to. We are, we're inching toward that March 18th when the Dodgers start the season in Japan. And until then, enjoy watching the spring games how you enjoy them. We'll be here to temper you down a little bit probably anyway. So
absolutely. You got anything else for today or for this week, Vince?
No, night game tomorrow. Ohtani are playing. That'll be fun. And yeah, we'll be into March by the next time we talk. So
yeah, Ohtani and Will Smith both playing. We misspoke yesterday. We were thinking Will Smith was supposed to play with Freddie today, but it's Friday with Ohtani. So that'll be fun. I'll be at Camelback Ranch on Thursday. I just decided earlier today, so I'm going to spend the day at Dodgers camp that day before my son's baseball tournament starts. So I'm excited about that. That'll do it for us for today and for this week. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not, just go ahead and watch or listen every weekday morning, and then you are an everydayer. It's that easy. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you Sunday night.
Have a good one.